Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live match reaction for Arsenal 1, Shakhtar 0. Um, and I'm sorry, I'm just really quickly changing the title. Um, because listen, I kind of feel like we could sit there and do ratings, but I want to do a match reaction, but I want to kind of do like more of an old school one because I feel like just doing the kind of like normal player rating setup isn't going to work for today because I think most of us are going to want to talk about. You guys let me know if you think this is right, but we weren't good today and the performance was really poor. I don't think anybody can deny that. I think there's so many people that um have like held their breath and kind of are like, well, we're winning games or we're getting results. But the performance today is not surprising to you if you've been actually watching our games and being real about how we've played all season. And we've just come to a place where without Saka and Odegaard, it's I feel like even more obvious. And so we haven't really gotten a chance to really unpack Bournemouth, but also like I don't feel like there's much to talk about from today, but I feel like overall what I'm seeing on the timeline and what I'm seeing in the chat is people are worried about our season in totality. And so I do want to talk about the game because obviously the game just ended, but I feel like player ratings is almost redundant because I could genuinely give everyone like a 4 except for um Partey and maybe Raya because Raya saved us a couple of times. If he had not made those saves, we would have probably drawn. And I thought Partey looked really good in the first half, even though I thought that he kind of fell off in the second half, but he was also in a different position. So that's neither here nor there. But besides like those two players, I feel like I'd give everybody like a 4. And the other players, people like they're saying, well, what about Martinelli? What about honestly, like Martinelli, he did okay. I thought he was good. Um, but I mean, after I say that he was good, what else? What else? What else do you want me to say? So I feel like it'll probably be more useful of our time to talk about things in totality because I feel like people are more concerned about what we look like without key players. Calafiori looks like he's injured. He went straight down the tunnel. We don't have Timber. White did not look good today, but we probably also rushed him back. The solution for Saturday cannot be Thomas Partey at right back. As good as he's played, the last thing you want him to have to do is play against somebody of a Luis Diaz or whatever. So um, it's not looking good, and we're going through a really difficult period in terms of who we're going to be playing next. So Shakhtar, I think, lost their first game in the Champions League um, by like 6 goals or 7 goals. And as much as I was like, well, this should be a good game for us, I knew we weren't going to score the goals or play the way that a lot of people anticipated us because we just haven't been playing well this season. We're not creating loads of chances. We're not scoring lots of goals. We all know Leicester flattered us. We know that Leicester flattered us. Southampton was more difficult than it should have been. We were terrible against Atalanta. And 3 of our games have been very strange because we've had red cards. So it's been an odd start to the season. And so I don't really know what else to say about the Shakhtar Donetsk game, because for large parts of it, I was sitting looking at my phone because I was so bored. And then the whole second half, I was just hoping that we didn't concede because I knew if we conceded, we would not score a goal. So, and one thing that I'm really concerned about is our decision making as well in terms of who takes our penalties, because why is Kai Havertz not taking our penalties? He takes penalties for Germany. He probably one of our better penalty takers. Why is he not taking our penalties? I don't get that. Why is Trossard taking our penalties? I like Trossard. He had a mare today. He also had a really poor game today. But that's even more of a reason not to let him take the penalty. Like, I don't get it. Like, what is our damage? Like, why are we what is wrong with us? Like, I don't get it. And I remember I was saying this on the watch along where, um, it was early days in Mikel's tenure, but we had played against Brighton, and I think we drew 0-0, but we quite literally probably should have lost the game, and I think it was just because they couldn't finish, and it was when we were wearing those light yellow kits, you know? Um, and I remember, like, Odegaard was out there, Emile Smith Rowe was out there, I remember that, and, we genuinely could not pass the ball to each other. Genuinely, we could not pass the ball to each other. The technical level dropped off so much, and I was just it's, like, baffling because as much as I don't think we have the most technical team at times, I still don't understand why we get to the point where we just kick the ball out and we can't string together 5 passes and slow the game down and control matches, right? And so, yeah, I felt like I saw remnants of that again, where I don't know if it's we get under pressure or, things aren't working with the system. We can't solve problems and just do simple, basic things. Because as much as, obviously people, oh, Calafiori's shit. Oh, Marino's shit. Oh, Rice is shit. Martinelli is shit. We all know these players can pass the ball and, can do basic shit. So it's more than just them not being good players. They're playing against Shakhtar Donetsk at home and they couldn't pass the ball to each other. That's not because they're not good players. Something is fundamentally wrong with this team right now. And I don't know if there's too many players playing out of position or they don't feel confident without their main people, but that's the game. Liverpool City, they go without main players in their team and they still persevere and players step up. The level of the performance today was so low that like I just was like this the whole time. I was like, this is a very low level performance. Like it's not there's no energy, there's no snappiness to the everybody looks like they're drunk. There's no snappiness to the passes. Everybody's like it's wayward. Everybody's kicking the ball out and they're at home against Shakhtar Donetsk. Like this was a perfect game after Bournemouth to wipe that away and get a good performance in before a really scary run of fixtures. And they didn't do it. They just woo. So I don't know what our problem is. I really don't. And so it's hard for me to even analyze the Shakhtar Donetsk game because what do we say beyond everybody played poorly except for Raya, Partey, and Martinelli, and we should have Kai Havertz taking our penalties. Like there's n- there's I feel like it's just bigger issues. What the fuck are we about to do without Calafiori at the weekend? I don't get it. You know? So I don't know where we go from here, but listen, I just don't really think that this performance is that shocking if you've actually been watching us play because we haven't played well basically all season. So this was bound to happen. And I think mostly it's happened because we don't have Saka carrying us right now. I think he carried us very much so against like Southampton and Leicester. And now that he's not there, they're all looking at each other like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I said before the game that it was supposed to be is a big game for Jesus. He didn't do much. Some people said he played good. I thought if you thought that that was a good Jesus performance, then your standards are very low. Like it was very like whatever. He had a couple of decent moments where he dribbled and then I don't know, beat himself. He beat the player and then beat himself. Poor crosses. He had one moment where like acrobatic got it into the box for Kai and Kai almost got kicked in the head trying to head it in, but beyond that, Jesus didn't do anything. Sterling didn't do anything when he came on. Kai didn't really do anything. He did like maybe one or two like decent things, but ultimately that was not a great Kai game. Trossard was abysmal, probably the worst person in the attack. So yeah. Brian says if Mikel starts Zinni versus Liverpool, it's a sackable offense. Don't be surprised. I said it in my group chat. The people were like, MLS will probably start at the weekend. I was like, no, Zinchenko is fit now. So what are the chances of him using MLS versus Zinchenko? He didn't probably use him today because, he just came back from injury. But yeah, and Ben White, like like at first I was like, "Damn, he's playing so bad." But at the same time, I just don't think Ben is fit and I think we're rushing him back. We can't afford to rush back any of our players or else they won't really be able to play. They'll be in and out all the time, just reoccurring injuries. So I don't know what we're going to do at the back. I was saying that I'd rather just put Ben at right-sided center back, and if Timber was fit, then put him at right back and keep Calafiori. But Calafiori may not be fit. Um, White is definitely not fit, and Timber hasn't trained. So, child, I think at this stage, you got to try Declan Rice at right-sided center back. I think that's the best thing that you can do. Him at right-sided center back next to Gabrielle, and then whatever fullbacks are fit, you go with them. I think you have to steer clear of Kivior at the back. Steer clear. There's just nothing in the world makes sense with him at the back. It just won't. Yeah. So I think you have to put Declan Rice at right-sided center back, and then do whatever the fuck you gonna do. No, I don't know. I don't know. Alex says we played like we were 10 men. I mean, but here's the thing, Alex, is when I said that going down to 10 men doesn't mean that you should cough up the ball and not be able to pass to each other, not be able to control the game, not be able to create chances, whatever. People are saying, yeah, but you're down a man. I'm like, even at 10, like with 10 men against Bournemouth and Brighton, we should have done better. But now those same standards are creeping into our games with 11v11. Us playing the way that we played with 10 men is not because that's all we could do. It's what we always revert to. When we're not playing well, all of a sudden, or we're under any sort of stressful situation, we just sit back in our box and defend. We stop going forward, we go negative. That is 10 men, 11 men. That's all. So yeah, like but people were pretending like 10 men that makes sense. It doesn't make sense with 10 men, it doesn't make sense with 11 men. Arsenal Football Club should be able to pass the ball to each other in any circumstance. The only game that it kind of made sense was against City. But we used to normalize getting slapped up and not touching the ball against City away from home and shit like that. So I'm not surprised that people normalize everything and they watch other teams have threat against City away from home or Liverpool again. And it just makes sense that we can't make a shot on goal. Our standards are so fucking low. Like they just really are. Like 10 men, Arsenal should be able to pass the ball around. You still have to be maybe a little bit more pragmatic, but the level at which we get to, we look like a team, the recreation team, just kicking that ball out. Anton says we've been too pragmatic this season, playing like a Mourinho team. And can I say, like, if you're gonna play like Mourinho, you need to have like bagsmen up front, the types of players that if they get one chance, they're gonna put it away. One chance, they're gonna put it away because you may only get like one or two chances. You need to be clinical if you're gonna sit back and defend and absorb. But we're doing neither. We're super pragmatic. So we don't attack a lot. We spend a lot of time in the center circle, just passing the ball meaninglessly until we just kick it out the end line or lose the ball or whatever. But when we get that one chance, we don't have clinical forwards. So if you don't have clinical forwards, the best way that you can score goals is by creating loads of chances. The only way you can create loads of chances is if you throw more men forward, you play more attacking football. We play Mourinho style defensive football with unclinical forwards, and that doesn't work. You need to have a Jokeris in your team or like a bagsman up there where he's going to get one fucking chance. He's going to put it away. We need 7, 8 chances. We create a chance, a half chance every 10 minutes. We don't have teams backed into their box. They're not defending for their lives. I'm so sorry, but you can't have it both ways. I will take this pragmatic football if I know that I got, a top 3 in their position striker up front that if you just even get it even near the box, he's going to put it in. Otherwise, we got to open up a little bit more, baby. We got to be a little bit more adventurous. And I'm not saying we have to go all the way back to 22, 23 football where we were a little bit too open, but there has to be a middle ground where we inject a little bit more fun and attack into our football because right now it's crazy. It really is. But that's wow. Chosen One says, by the way, Arteta just said Saka probably won't play against Liverpool. Well, we're not. I mean, listen, whatever. Owen says we're playing like Moyes, not Mourinho. That's probably better. This is probably a little bit disrespectful to Mourinho to say that we're playing like a Mourinho team. Leo says, better not mention Isak, who only scored 1 goal this season. I'm not mentioning Isak. I've always said I don't want him. So like Isak is not somebody that I've ever gravitated towards. I thought Arsenal fans were doing a lot, saying that he was Henri regen. So DS says, yes, Jess, you're spot on with not creating chances with 10 men. Not even like the creating chances. We're not even passing the ball with like in a coherent way. Like there's it's like they've never done a rondo before. It's like they can't pass and move and it's like it gets into midfield and then somebody gets it and then they do a bad pass or a lot of times like Jesus would get it, he's passing it behind Kai Havertz or Trossard gets it and he just flicks it and it goes to no one. And some of that is they don't play with each other often, but I think a lot of it is just playing crap. Like, you know what I mean? So, yeah, like again, when you start normalizing stuff like against 10 men, you should just be coughing the ball up. Or when you're down to 10 men, you should just cough up the ball and whatever. I think those standards start to slip in everywhere else. And it shouldn't be like this, guys. And almost every game that we've had so far, I will say, except for PSG, when PSG I'll say every game in the Premier League for sure. If we've had to have the impetus to have the ball, we've been poor. We may have won the game, but our performance level was not anywhere near what it should be. Um, and so far this season, I think we've been better in situations where the other team is supposed to have the ball. But if we're supposed to have the ball, it's rough out here. It is because today there was just nothing. Like Osmond is saying, we don't pass with conviction. We don't have patterns of play this season. The stats show that we play long balls into Havertz or our midfield this season. Kwame says, without Saka and Odegaard, we look bang average and there's no fluidity in the performance. And this is a very interesting situation because I always thought that our patterns of play were really strong, but it really seems that our patterns of play and our way of play is very much so built around Odegaard and Saka. And without them, there's nothing there. And I don't feel like that's a well coached team. I feel like that's not being well coached. That's leaning on 2 players. And then, but we've always kind of known that things look really bad without them. But that's why when we played in those cup competitions, every time we rotate in those cup competitions and Saka or Odegaard don't play, we don't get past that round or we play really poorly and just barely get by. That's not a well-coached side, I feel like. I feel like a well-coached side, regardless of what players they have in the team, they can execute a certain level of their football. The quality may go down, but there's still remnants of who that team is in the performance. I don't know who this team is right now. I don't know who this team is right now. So it's like I'm concerned to a certain level because there's a part of me at the beginning of the season that I was already concerned about from minute one, the Brighton game, I was like, "Ooh, that's Then the Atalanta game really alerted me. I was like, this team is, we weren't really good against Tottenham or Aston Villa, but we got the points. I think that masked a lot of these issues. So I don't really know. I just want to know how you guys are feeling right now. We're almost 10 games in. We're at the weekend. We have big games, and then we go into a really difficult November. How are you guys feeling before that? Now, I don't think we're going to lose every single game, but so before anybody starts saying, you're going to act like we're going to lose every single game. No, I'm not. I don't think we're going to lose every single game, but do I think we're going to drop quite a few points? Yeah, if we play the same way that we're playing now. So yeah. But I did see something, and I'm not hold on. I thought I saw Connor say from Football Daily that we are guaranteed to go to the knockouts. I think I saw that, so I guess that's like a silver lining. Um, so yeah, and but I mean, I'm concerned about whoever we play in the next round. Um, let's see, Calafiori, he felt something, so he had to come off, a bit of a worry. On Saka, I don't know, he wasn't able to train yet, so that's unlikely. Arteta said in the second half, I felt a bit of fatigue. We lacked clarity and purpose with the ball, but we dig to get the result. In the second half, I felt a bit of fatigue, so we're tired. How can that be? We're only like 8 games in, but I guess you do put a lot more work into a game when you don't have the ball. You know, if most games you don't have the ball and you're playing with 10 men, that does fatigue you more. And if you don't rotate well enough, yeah, maybe you are fatigued. But we lack clarity and purpose with the ball. Um, yeah, but I mean, after the game against Bournemouth, y'all were talking about digging deep and using the pain and shit. We don't need to dig deep and use the pain. We need to learn how to kick the ball to each other. They need to call Arsene Wenger and do a 2-week clinic with these guys and get them like they need to train on the attack. They need to learn how to pass and move and do simple triangles. We don't need to use the pain and dig in. We've leaned into that too much. This is a side thing. This is a side thing, but it it's how I felt about the US women's national team, and I know people are like, "I don't watch that team," but just let me land. There got to be a point where the US women's national team were had fallen away from their level so much that all they could ever say is when the US women won a game, it's because they dug in and they worked hard, they had grit. They had grit, they had grit, they had grit. And even though those things are great, at the US women's best, they were the best team. They outworked everybody and they had the grit, but they were also the best team. Best technical team, not always the best technical team, but they had a technical, level that was high. They performed well. They had the best attackers. They were clinical. They were hard to break down, all of those things. It was not just about holding on to a result. And I'm getting those same vibes from Arteta and Arsenal, where we have strayed away from playing good football and beating people with our style of play. And we're getting into that, oh, well, we're just a grit team. We're a team that just going to grit it out and take the pain and the suffering and all that shit. And it's like, yeah, but we're not even like winning all the games playing this fucking way you know? So do we need to continue this? Like, that's cute when you're playing up against, the best team in the world and you're down a man. Of course, you need the grit and all that. But when I'm playing against Leicester, I don't want grit. When I'm playing against Atalanta, I don't want grit. When I'm playing against Shakhtar, I don't want grit. When I'm playing against Aston Villa, I don't want grit. Playing up against Tottenham, I don't want grit. I want us to outplay them. I want us to go toe for toe. I want us to go bar for bar. I want to feel like my midfield is going up against your midfield. My forwards are doing as much damage to your defense as your forwards are doing to ours. This season, no, it hasn't been that. So I don't want us to lean too far into this grit and these duels and shit and forget that at some stage you need to play decent football. And that doesn't mean it needs to be like poetry in motion all the time, but we ain't playing good football. You guys hear what I'm saying? But I don't want to be grit FC all the time. I want to be, ooh, did you see that pass? Did you see that move? Did you see that? And I don't, I don't want all the good football that we do play coming from our fullbacks. Because I feel like if Timber and Calafiori ain't in there, we're not getting no vibes or nothing from anyone else. So yeah, but Ivy says the grit is good, but we need a bit of like technical ability and the flair as well. I agree. And Leo, I understand that all I want is wins. I don't care how. But I feel like I'm not saying that it's just about the aesthetics. I'm saying we're not playing effective football. It's not effective. Sometimes the most effective football is good football, you know? So if it's not about just the aesthetics. I don't want to just play good attacking football with the door open, at the other side. That's not what I'm saying, but I I do care about how we get the wins, because if all the only way that we can win a game is by gritting it out, we're not going to win the games that we need to. So to a certain extent, winning is all that matters, but we all know that the way that we win does matter, because nobody feels good after the Shakhtar game, do they? If all that mattered is we won, then we would just say, wow, Shakhtar, that's over. It's great, and move on. So we know that it matters, especially when you have a couple of games that you can look back on where you did win, but the performance level wasn't great. You know that that's going to run out. As Arsenal fans, we have said that before. We've watched our rivals like Man United play terrible football for games, long stretches, and they were getting gassed by those performances. And well, we won the game, so who cares? And we all said that it would crash and burn at some point, and it did. And so we're in a similar situation where we know deep down it doesn't feel, like O'Malley is saying, it doesn't feel sustainable. And I think we're about what, 9, 10 games in all comps. And we're already in a position where it doesn't feel sustainable. It feels like we're on the edges of stuff. And obviously we need to get Odegaard and Saka back. I think that's the most important thing. I think both of those players make us a much better side. And every team struggles without their best players. But even with them, we didn't look great, you know? So yeah. But that's just kind of where I am. I don't want to be Grit FC. So yeah. Leo says, we have won all games with 11 men except one draw. Discipline is more of an issue than style of play. I disagree. I don't think you can play how you played against Aston Villa and Spurs and Leicester and Southampton and expect to continue to win games. It's unsustainable. But I get that I feel like that's a stat that works in favor of a certain, like a certain part of the fan base, but we're not playing good football. Let's say this. If come back after we play against Inter, Chelsea, Newcastle, and Liverpool, Preston. When we play all those games, let's see how many we've won. And we keep 11 men on the pitch. If we keep 11 men on the pitch, and let's see how many of those games we win, because I don't think it's just because we didn't have 11 men. I think that is a coincidence. Personally, I think that's a coincidence. I actually just think we've gotten to the place where we don't have Saka and Odegaard like papering over cracks. That's genuinely what I think it is. So yeah, Kaz says the season is early. Players are not fully fit yet. Owen says all of our wins bar 2 are not results if certain kicks the ball don't go our way. I mean, because Barry's like, how can you disagree with results? And I'm like, well, you can't say it for one team and not say it for another. I distinctly remember Arsenal fans being some of the most vocal when people were talking about Man United not playing well, but getting results. And so do they deserve the results? Yes. But is it sustainable? No. And so it's not about disagreeing and saying that we didn't deserve those wins. We deserve them. Whoever scores the most goals deserves the win. But did we play well? No. And of course, if you're not playing well, which we're not, the underlying metrics say we're not playing well. And we're watching with our eyes, we're not playing well. So of course, those results are all going to even themselves out. If Raya is not saving us against Villa, if Raya doesn't save us against Atalanta, if Raya doesn't, prevent Wolves from scoring, we probably don't get those results. So I think people are being disingenuous here. I kind of get it, because there has to be a reason why we're good and it's all fine, but we're not. like we're not. I'm sorry. But Saka and Odegaard are a big reason why we're not playing well, but we should not be at a point where we don't even look like ourselves at all without them. And that's either we don't have good enough players coming off of the bench to replace them, or the way that Arteta has us set up without them doesn't work. Either one, if not both. Jerome says, we look disjointed. Even with our defending, we look shaky. That wouldn't be an issue if, that wouldn't be an issue is we're so blunt going forward. I mean, we were shaky at the back in the first year that we challenged for the title. And when I mean shaky, I'm not saying that we were like Everton levels of defense or, Sheffield levels of defense, but we had a soft spot. If you got past Thomas Partey, you were pretty much in on goal. There were so many games where either Ramsdale made a save or Saliba or Gabriel made a last ditch tackle, or they just missed the chance that could have been really detrimental to us. But we were so dangerous going forward that most times it didn't matter. Now we're kind of disjointed. And like you said, our defending looks shaky. But like you said, we're not scoring goals with the frequency. We're not really an attacking threat consistently throughout the game. So I wonder how Arteta is going to fix that. Miller says, no, you don't see how. I don't know what you're saying. Saturday says, I'm actually hoping we play Liverpool as well as Chelsea did. The Arsenal perspective says, I'm telling you at this current moment, I am starting to get bored with some of these performances. Chosen One says, it's difficult without our creators. Sometimes some people say we don't have guys who can create something out of nothing, moments of magic, and I don't get it, honestly. Saka and Odegaard are those guys. Well, I think I agree that there are creators, so we're going to struggle without them. But when I say I think when people say something out of nothing, I think they're speaking about games like, Bayern away or Newcastle away or Aston Villa away, where maybe we weren't playing at our best and, it was a difficult game, but they just a moment of magic. And I don't think they necessarily have a lot of moments of magic. I think they start a lot of our attacks. They ignite a lot of our attacks, but it's rare that like the goal that Vinny scored for Real Madrid today, there's not a lot of moments where Saka or Odegaard have done that, where they've taken it and then just dribbled down the pitch and just put it in the back of the net. And it was just like nobody set it up for them. They just made that moment. And I think there's a difference between being an instigator, somebody that like instigates a lot of the things that we do and is fundamental to the way we play, and somebody that creates literally things out of nothing. And I think sometimes they don't necessarily have that, but they instigate all of our attacks. Odegaard literally receives the ball and then we go, okay, let's attack now. And then you give it to Saka and it's like, okay, let's get in the box now. We weren't doing any of that today. And it's crazy because you had guys like Sterling and Jesus out there and Trossard. These are very experienced players that couldn't figure out how to create a simple chance without them. I think that that's alarming. I don't think you should ever fall off that much, but I totally get what you're saying. Climby says, or Kill Me says, Arsenal did enough, bigger games to come. The Arsenal perspective says, missing some of those 21-22 performances. Or 22-23 performances, because I thought 21-22 was a tough year. I don't think when we finished 5th, I didn't think that was a great year for us, but let me know what you mean. Alessandra says, we're so lacking a cutting edge that we're sacrificing our defensive security to try to open the game up. I think our defensive security is very simple. I think it's if you have Declan Rice sitting in front of the back line, you're more secure than if you have Partey. I don't think Partey is the best shield. That being said, Partey gives us a little bit more on the ball. So I don't know if we're even sacrificing our defensive security. I wish we would sacrifice our defensive security more. I wish we would throw more men forward. There was times in today's match where there was only like 2 or 3 people attacking at a time. There was like Jesus, Kai, and like Martinelli were up there, but our midfielders didn't even get out of the defense. They just sat back. So yeah, I don't know if we're actually sacrificing our defensive security to open the game up, because we don't even throw men forward. We don't even attack with 6 players anymore. We attack with like 3, at times. So I slightly disagree with this, but I think our defensive security is not where it was last season. That being said, Thomas adds something going forward, but we're not getting anything from it at the moment because we're struggling to really imprint ourselves on the attacking part of the game. So yeah, Kilme says, Arteta looking for balance without Odegaard. Well, keep looking because you have not found it. I think the most obvious answer is staring him right in the face. And I think most of the time the answers are staring him in the face, or at least another option is standing right there in front of his face. I would like to know from your guys' perspective, how how long do we go without just playing Ethan? because it feels like the moment that people decided that he should be starting, Arteta stopped playing him. He's like, I don't know if he's like looking online and he's like, they want him to start. I know best, but now Ethan is not even really coming off of the bench to make a difference like he was, like not early like he did against Leicester, which kind of started the whole like us playing better. And so I just don't understand why the natural option isn't to start a player that actually plays in those positions. And before people are like, but he's a young player. What if he's going to ruin his? Because I still don't understand where Arsenal fans have gotten this feeling like if a young player makes a mistake throughout within a game and we lose, that their whole career will crumble into 1,000 pieces and they'll never recover. We genuinely have like Trossard passing the ball to a Shakhtar Donestk player in the box. So it can't get any worse than that. But I don't understand how the answer or even an option couldn't just be, well, in Odegaard's absence, let's try to play Lineri there. The guy that I played in preseason instead of Odegaard in that position, the person that plays there naturally. Why is that not an option? He's not going to do it against Liverpool because against Liverpool, we'll probably bank it in at home. Genuinely, I can see us doing that. We'll play without the ball. And this season, that's the best that we played without it. So Arteta he'll probably do like Partey at right back because we won't have a fit right back. Like, you know, um, it's going to be rough. And then who knows what the midfield is going to be. Like, I don't know. It's tough. Let's see. Ola Dio says Tottenham, Aston Villa, and City were away games. Could the tactics now at the moment be to conserve energy? Was I frustrated with the last 2 games? Yes. I asked about this during the watch along. I was like, it feels like maybe he has told him to play at half speed or something like that. Because if that's the best that they could do, I'd be very shocked by that. I was like, there has to be. I'm like trying to find a reason why we're playing so slow and so ponderous. And maybe it was that, we had played so many games away and with 10 men. Because you have to think, we played against Aston Villa, Tottenham, and City. None of those games we had the ball. We were chasing and pretty much defending for our lives. Well, not defending for our lives, but we weren't. There was a stressful, hard games. Let's put it that way. And against Brighton and Bournemouth, we had 10 men, so those were stressful games. And what Declan Rice got sent off at like almost at halftime or right after halftime. Saliba 30th minute. So maybe he does feel like the boys are tired and he was trying to get them to conserve energy today. That's the only way that it would make sense for them to play the way that they played today. But even still, I expect you to pass the ball to each other. So that still doesn't explain why we couldn't trap a ball or pass the ball to each other, but maybe he didn't want them sprinting or, running hard or anything, to conserve energy. I don't know. But did he tell him to do that against Bournemouth? Because the level and standard of performance was very similar. So I don't know. Interesting days. So yeah. Oh wait, we gave Saka his chance and he's done all right. Let us now roll with Wanyeri. Ham6 says Arteta is such a perfectionist that he doesn't want someone like Wanyeri to start matches, even versus the likes of Southampton, because he just prefers the safe options with experience. And I think the part about this that probably we'll always struggle with as Arsenal fans is the fact that that's never been our jam. We've always had, like, having 20 years of Arsene, he was never afraid to throw a young player in. So I think it's difficult to watch a manager really like refrain from using the youth. But listen, it's tough because Ethan is literally the next man up in an attacking sense because Odegaard is not there. If we had bought an attacking midfielder, maybe we wouldn't have these problems. Like a lot of, I feel like the problems that are coming forward are more like because we don't have certain personnel or we haven't addressed certain things. And so I just feel like that's why Ethan just seems like the natural thing to do. If you don't have an attacking midfielder, play the only attacking midfielder that you have on the bench. But he's not going to do that. And so we're playing with Trossard in the 10, which I said from the beginning, I didn't really think it was that great. I think that he had good performances, but did we play well? No. And I think our midfield will just always be a problem as long as it's not balanced. So yeah, I'm not sure, but I really like Ethan and I think he should be getting minutes. But it's difficult too because you can make an argument for Ethan starting today and maybe we would have scored more goals or been more fluid. And but we kind of needed to be 3-4 goals up for us to see him from the bench too. So I don't I don't know, man. It's tough. I love Ethan and I think he's ready, but I just know deep down in my heart that Arteta's not gonna play him. If he didn't play him against Southampton or Leicester, didn't start him against those 2 teams, he's not gonna the next time we'll see Ethan maybe start a game is Preston. Maybe, because it's away, so I don't know what Arteta's gonna be about. Io says, "I'm not defending Arteta, but your fan base, once we lose, they start agenda against Ethan." I think this is a good point, but, I still feel like, 1, Arsenal fans are a lot more kind to Haaland anyway. So I feel like, but I do feel like they'll be less harsh on him, but you still have to make the decisions based on the best decisions on the pitch and not because of what's going to happen on social media. So, it can't be not playing, certain players because Arsenal fans are going to be mad about him or start an agenda. Because, first of all, what we say on socials and shit like that really should be the furthest thing from Arteta's mind, to be honest. If it's high on his mind, then he's got more problems than you think. But I get what you're saying. You can't control the fan base, though. You can't control the fan base. And I think we always think from the negative perspective. Well, what if it goes wrong? If it goes wrong, then, Arsenal fans are going to abuse him and he's going to blah, blah, blah. What if it goes well, though? What if he ends up being the answer to a really, a really suspect midfield right now, So, yeah, I know Arteta's not gonna do it, so it's a little bit of a dead conversation. He's not going to play him. He'd pull other players out of their natural positions to cover instead of play Ethan, but I do think he's ready. Peter says, "Perfectionist without trophies to show for what you called that." Burmese says, "Play the players in their natural positions or the positions in which they are consistently perform the best." You guys know I'm a big advocate of the relations on the pitch, and more natural positions is better than playing people out of position because they're more experienced. Um, but Arteta, really, that is who he is fundamentally. I think we know him. We know him now. We've known him for 5 years now. He leans towards the experience. The only reason why we have such a young team and we went team youth is because we didn't make Champions League. And so we couldn't attract the older players that Arteta wanted. And the only way for us to attract talented players at that time was to go younger. And so that's the only reason why we went team youth. That wasn't because we wanted it. If we had made top 4 that year, we wouldn't have went team youth. Not top 4, if we would have made Europe. The year that we didn't make Europe was the year that we had to go into team youth. So that's when we bought the Zambies and the Nunos, because we weren't going to be able, without Europe, and as bad as we had been for years, we wouldn't have been able to attract top players or talented players or whatever. So yeah, I think Arteta would have, if we had, like, in an alternate universe, we would be a completely different team, So, but we know how Arteta is. He likes the experienced players. He likes the Jorginhos and, those types of guys, and will always lean on their experience over the youth. That's just who he is. Like, I think we're far enough in this with Mikel that we know he prefers experience over youth. And that's despite how much he plays Saka and the young players. He plays them because they were already in the team when he got here. and he needed to start playing Martinelli and Saka and Emil because he was very close to the edge of getting sacked. Um, and then the club needed to go in a younger direction because they didn't make Europe. Like otherwise, he wouldn't. That's not who he is. We also know that he's more pragmatic and he is more of a defensive manager. I feel like those things are very clear now. Chosen One says, I get what you mean, Jess. It's like that Salah goal versus City in 2022. I think even these circumstances without two creators, Salah would still make that happen. Got to get that player in the summer. We've been kicking the can down the road with these players, though. I just feel like we've known that we've needed more attack-minded players or more X factor, I'll say. We know we've needed X factor. We know we've needed, a striker or just another attacker. We know these things, but Arsenal even said it, but they just didn't do it in the summer. And now we're got Sterling coming out here. He didn't really do anything today. Still want to give him time, but I don't think there's any circumstance where I'd keep him for the for a permanent. Like, I don't think there's anything that Sterling could do to make me do the permanent deal. We have Marino, who I think is a good player and will obviously come good. I think the first couple games have been a little bit hit or miss for him. I think he'll come good. Is he the exact right profile that we've needed? No. But is it something that we can deal with? Yes. And then Calafiori, which we have a bunch of left backs, and he's been great, but we may not even have him on the pitch on Sunday, and we're 10 games in, so it's tough. Arteta said, believe me, on Sunday we will be flying. Hopefully you'll change your game plan and really, get these guys going because we can't afford to lose. At home against Liverpool. We need to make sure that if you want to stay in the title race, you got to be beating your title rivals at home. Or if you draw, then that means that there's pressure on you to go to Anfield and get a result or go to the Etihad and get a result, those types of things. So, I don't know. DK says, if Trossard wasn't making stupid mistakes every game, I would understand not starting Ethan, but every game Trossard makes a dumb pass leading to a chance against us. I know. It's even tougher now because Trossard was actually playing well for like 2 games, and then now he's fallen off of a cliff. So it makes it even more like playing Ethan. So I totally get that. I don't know what it would take for Arteta to play Ethan, but I still feel like he's going to stick with what he has, or what he's been sticking with. He's very hard-headed, Mikel. We would have to go through a really bad run of games, to be honest. Really bad run of games. So yeah, Chosen One says, I'd rather them lose the game actually going for it than playing defensive and maybe not getting 3 points anyway. I feel like you can take more from it. I feel like most games against the bigger teams, and when I say the bigger teams, I'm not talking about like Tottenham. Tottenham, whether we were, really bad or really good, we beat them. So, I'm not talking Tottenham. We usually are good against Chelsea in recent years too. I'm talking about like City and Liverpool in particular, that we're always defensive against those teams. And we've always basically said that if we try to go toe to toe, we will get killed. And I kind of understand that, but at this stage, if we can't go toe to toe with them and play our game and be a little bit more open and inflict damage on them, then I'm a little worried about, where we're at, so, I think the first time that I saw us not be defensive against City was when we beat them like 2, or no, they beat us 2-1. But ever since then, I do feel like we're still a little timid against them. We still kind of keep a lot of men back. We're really conservative. We go long periods of time without the ball, or we don't keep on to the ball. Like when we get it, we give it away very easily. So yeah, I think maybe at this stage you'd want to see us maybe be a little bit more adventurous, if we're playing in these games. But I don't know. We're really struggling right now just to do like normal shit. So yeah. Chosen One says, honestly, he could even play Ethan on the wing if he doesn't want to play him in the midfield. Peter says, our Sterling loan deal needs to cut short because he's not the answer, even if that's even possible. Mr. Happy says, I hope we sell Trossard in the summer. That's harsh. Amina says, we look so lost without Saka, and oh, we aren't creative enough, especially going into the second half of the game. Money says he put Louis Skelly over Zinchenko and Kivior. He did, but Kivior is not Arteta's favorite player, so I don't know why people always bring Kivior up. Kivior is not a player that Arteta rates. I'm so sorry. He had to have like no one else to actually play Kivior last season. And the minute Zinchenko got fit, he took him out despite the good form he was in. He does not rate Kivior, you know. But Zinchenko, he just came back from injury. So if Zinchenko has more days under his belt, I think Louis Skelly won't start that game. I would not be surprised if Zinchenko does. Remember, Arteta started the season with Zinchenko starting. He rates him. Like, he rates him. So, yeah. I thank you so much for your super chat. Says my earlier comment about fans' narrative that losing games will ruin a young player like Ethan and how they start pushing the agenda after a loss. No, I got what you were saying for sure. I got what you were saying. I just think that the fans and well, first of all, the fans are culpable for some of their like reactions and stuff like that. I don't particularly like whenever I was at the Emirates, even if I was nervous, I'd always try to like push that away because I knew because I was like in the stadium, I needed to have like a certain energy. But the reality is the Emirates is always kind of like weird, you know. So and if they don't like you or they don't trust you, they're even weirder. Like we saw it with Ryan, we saw it with Kai. And so that's just like what it's going to be. But I do think at a certain stage, like we need to get to the point where the players shut the fans up and like, and that will stop some of the narratives, you know? So if Ethan were to have a bad game and people were to have an agenda against him, the best way to shut them up is to start playing well. You know, Brendan Johnson a couple of weeks ago was getting lambasted by the Tottenham fans, and then he turned around and scored 9 games on the trot. Now they love him. It's just that simple, you know, but it wasn't like the fans needed to coddle him in order for him to play well. He took the matters into his own hands and started scoring goals, and now they love him. So I think we do too much of like this. The fans need to, the players need to just buck up and win. Like, I don't know how we can't step on the pitch. The most important thing is how they perform on the pitch. They kick the ball. They have to take the majority of the responsibility. We can help by being positive and being loud in the stands, but ultimately the Emirates will start to get loud and start to be more confident when they start winning. I genuinely feel like that's the missing component. It's always something else other than, well, because I actually was having this conversation online the other day. Somebody was saying that to because you know, like I tweeted that there's always a meltdown around the corner because we haven't won a trophy in a long time. And fans are always worried that we'll fall short again, especially because we've had 2 failed, you know, title races with no trophies in either season. And somebody was saying, well, it'll be exactly the same even if we're winning. The fans will still not be happy if we're winning trophies. And I'm just like, how can you even say something like that? How could you actually say that you think that the fans would still be negative if we start winning trophies? Where do you even get a narrative like that? First of all, I would like to actually see it. You know, I'd actually like to test the theory. So let's start winning. You know, so everything starts with winning. But I do think there will always be a section of fans that want us to lose because of whatever. But people like me, there's a lot of people in this fan base like Dan, Turkish, people like that genuinely just want us to win. We're all about the same age. We're all about 35. So we've all been old enough to see what a really good Arsenal team looks like. We still remember what the Invincibles were like. So a lot of that just comes from that. And I think everybody gets lumped into one and everybody's Lee Gunner. Lee Gunner's going to hate the club and hate the manager and hate the players no matter what. That's his brand. But most Arsenal fans will start to feel more confident about our chances of winning things when we have a better record of actually getting it over the line. Sometimes you need proof of concept. And right now, it's really hard to be upset at fans for not believing that, we'll do certain things or being quiet or nervous. If Raya didn't make good saves today, we probably would have conceded and or maybe even lost to Shakhtar today. So it's not like we haven't seen this team cock up a lot of times, or at least a handful of times. So it's just the strangest thing that people would actually insinuate that the fans will still be negative even if we win things. Of course, there'll still be negative fans, but a lot of them will go away or start to be more positive because they will actually start believing that we're going to win stuff because they've actually seen us do it, you know? So that's all I'm saying. Line says, we all saw what happened to Patino. He was crucified by the fan base after the cup loss at City Ground. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember him being crucified. He did play with Sambi. And see, here's the shade of all that is that you started the midfield with Sambi and Patino, so you set Patino up for failure. But what are the chances of Ethan having a game like Patino had at the City Ground with Rice and Partey next to him, or Odegaard and Partey with him, or whatever combination of midfield? What are the chances? So of course the fans should not like have a meltdown against the kid or whatever. He did play poorly in that game for sure. Uh, and so did Sambi, but they were set up for failure. Like, why would you start that midfield against Nottingham Forest, a championship team? And Patino, I'm so sorry, but he's not the hill to die on anyway. He wasn't at our level, like Money is saying. Chosen One says Zinni cannot start against Salah. I will not be there. I'm gonna look at the lineup and then decide what I'm gonna do. Theo says the Emirates is so dead it breaks my heart. The chants don't even last a minute. This club needs a major trophy bad. And somebody was telling me that some of it is just because we're in London, like our Arsenal are in London, and London is not like the North. Like Northern fans are a lot more like, but London is like more posh. So I don't know if that's true. You guys can give me some input on that. But in general, I just think the Emirates were very traumatized as a fan base. I think people forget that. Like we've been through so much bad since we've gotten to the Emirates and we haven't won any major trophies. We went through 7 years of not even being in Champions League. So there's a lot of like stuff there. It's hard to just wipe that away and just say, yeah, for sure, we're going to win everything now. Like we're going to do it. Like it's very hard to do that when you've been through a lot of like bad moments. And I think the Emirates is just quiet because they don't believe. The day that I remember that broke me so badly was not even Baku, not even that. Like I knew we weren't going to win then. When we didn't actually win one game out of the 7 games that we should have in the league to qualify for Champions League, I knew if it came down to a game against Chelsea in the Europa League final, we wouldn't win. So I was already like, we're not winning this game. Fuck it. It was when against Olympiacos at home. That was the game where I was like, I can't trust y'all. I can't trust y'all. Olympiacos at home in the Europa League in the round of 32. Hello? Like, and that people were in the Emirates and they felt that. I cannot imagine being there in the actual stadium when it happened because I don't know if I would have survived the day. I really don't. So yeah, I think until we start winning things, a lot of this like nervousness and anxiety is going to continue. And people were saying that the Emirates was really quiet, and I'm like, because they're scared we're going to lose to Shakhtar. you know? So yeah. Dom says if Arteta won't play Ethan when Odegaard was injured, what chance does Ethan have when he's fit? What message does that send to our academy? If you're good enough, you're old enough. Yeah, we probably won't see him until Preston. Blaze says if fans at Emirates don't believe in the team, that means we won't win the league. I mean, They did believe. A lot of I think a lot no, actually, I think that was a lot of hopium on the timeline, I'll be so real, but, um, it's up to to me, it's up to the players and the manager. I think a lot of damage a lot of times is done in the summer, though. The way that our season started last season, a lot of the contempt came from Kai Havertz and Raya. I'll say that for sure. So I think when you start off and you don't really understand the window and you watch us play against Wolves and we're okay, but not super convincing, play against Brighton, you draw, your second game at home in the Premier League or, whatever it was, third game, whatever it was. You go to Aston Villa, you're watching that game, you're like, we kind of cash and grab or whatever. Ah, If the players want the fans to believe they can win the league, I really do think that they need to just start winning trophies. I don't know what else we can do. This is our third time around. I don't know, you know? Um, and I remember how it was at the beginning of the 2022-2023 season. It was a lot better. It was a lot like more energetic and stuff. But I'll tell you right away, the minute that we came back from the World Cup and people expected us to win the league, you could see it slowly turning again. And not turning in a bad way where people were abusing the players, turning in like the nervousness was coming up. You know what I mean? And so I just feel like naturally it's gonna take them to start winning for the fans to believe, like, the the chicken or the egg thing is not gonna work here, like, well, if the fans get behind, then the players will believe, and then the players believe, and then the fans believe. I think just they just kinda need to win, unfortunately. Jonathan says, "It's mad our last trophy was in 2020, almost 5 years. That's shocking." William says, "If we play the way we did tonight, Liverpool will give us a reality check. If you don't have a reality check already, I don't know what you need." Jonathan says, "Oh, well, Jonathan, you said 5 years. That's shocking." I mean, how many like really good sides go 5 years without winning a trophy? I think we normalize not winning trophies a lot, so normalize, not being able to pass the ball with 10 men, normalizing performances as long as we win the game, even though it was not good, normalizing, the way that we play, even though we know that we're watching it with our eyes and seeing that it doesn't work, normalizing not winning trophies and it's fine because only only a Premier League or a Champions League will help us. Well, yeah, if you're actually challenging for the league and you're pinching off a domestic here and there, that looks a lot better than what we were doing, So we normalize a lot of bullshit. Now we're getting into our fifth season and the pressure is on. And like, yeah, the pressure is on. I said I feel like we have to win something. And I saw some people saying that it's not fair that Arsenal fans are putting a lot of pressure on winning a trophy this season or it's over. But I'm like, when do you get to pressure the team? You don't get to say anything when we're winning. When we lose, you can't say anything. When the season is over and we've got no trophies, you can't say anything. So when does the pressure come in? I don't really understand. Like, when are we meant to expect more? Like, I don't get it. It's like, well, people are only focusing on the trophies. They're not focused on, the team. And I'm just like, how much we're not Brighton. I don't know how much more simple it needs to be explained. The Arsenal perspective says, let's not forget it's European football. We suck at that historically. Burmy says, Arsenal definitely lacks squad depth and it's compounded by injuries of key players. Arteta must be brave and trust Waneri to enhance fluidity and creativity. And yeah, I think this this pragmatism that he has, I would like to just see the alternative universe. I think of it. I think most times when Arteta's been really afraid to make changes or wants to rely upon the older players, I think the result has always been either we don't do what we're supposed to do or we just barely shave it. It never really super works out. Trusting Rob Holding didn't really work out. Trusting Willian for a long time didn't really work out. you know um the answer for him is never just try the young players, or and I'd like to actually see that, you know, and if it doesn't work, then I'll never talk about it again. If Ethan has the worst game he's ever had in the world and we lose 5-0, and the game we didn't play any better than we played with Marino and Partey and Declan, then maybe I'll just put it away. But the fact that we never try it makes me think that maybe you should, because you know playing imbalanced teams to and moving older players out of their position because they're experienced, that's never really worked. So let's try something else. Um but no top manager does not exhibit levels of bravery under pressure. I think most great managers do take risks. They do show a level of bravery. They know when to be safer, and they know when to do the riskier thing. But the riskier things are always there. They always have moments where they trust a young player in the right situation in a big game. They always have, and they change the tactics and it works. Sometimes it doesn't. You have like a Pep in the Champions League, um, fuck up final. But you have so many other moments where Pep was brave and trusted a young player, or, changed his tactics to just do this one little thing and it works. I'm wondering how many moments Arteta is going to have if he's so afraid to try new things. Um, because I don't know any top managers, really good managers, that are known for being pragmatic and never take risks. So yeah. Amina says some of us were a bit worried about signing Sterling to replace Saka. We were told that we were being negative. Fair enough. I wanted to try to give it a chance. You guys know I never wanted Sterling. So um the Arsenal perspective says I hear you, but he needs a run of games. If you're talking about, who are you talking about? Marino or um maybe talking about Marino. Philip says, big up Jess, big up to you as well. The Arsenal perspective says, this is what baffles me. 5 years in, 700 million plus spent. How are we still lacking squad depth? Let's be real. We have a number of players who Mikel has lost favor less than 2 years in. Um, well, I feel like this some of the squad depth issues is we had too many players that didn't work out. That ended up, like you said, we had to just kind of kick to the curb because it was just like it didn't work out. Like Fabio Vieira is meant to be squad depth in this team, and he's not. We bought Sambi for like 18 million. He's meant to be in this team as well, and he's not in it. So when you think about those two players, the two of them together cost over 50 million. So I think there's just too many examples of players that haven't worked out because they were not good enough, or Arteta couldn't figure out a way to use them. You can decide what it was. Could he not figure out how to use them, or just were they not very good? Either way, it's a fuck up. Or we had players that we bought that are injury prone and are never available to us. And then we also have to buy in the same position over and over again. So we never finish the starting 11. The first time that we were close to finishing our starting 11 was after the 2022-2023 season. We got very close to a title winning side where we really performed well. We had our our wing duo that was playing really well. We had our Odegaard. We had a balanced midfield. That's the only time we've had a good balanced midfield since Arteta has been here. We had Saliba and Gabriel, so we had our center back pairing. We had our right back, and then we had our left back, and then we had Jesus. So everything, we just needed to add a couple of things. I think after that season, people wanted a striker, so we needed to buy a striker. We needed to replace Granit Xhaka, and we needed probably a left back because Zinchenko had been exposed. And I think we bought Timber after that season, and we bought Havertz, and we bought Rice. So we didn't really do the things that we needed to do, because I love Rice. Don't get me wrong. I think Rice is a great player, but if you were going to buy him and he's a DM, and no matter what you guys say, he is a DM. He's known as a DM. Before he came to Arsenal, everybody called him a DM. Nobody was saying he was a box to box. Nobody was saying he was an 8. Everybody was on the same page that he was a DM. We bought a central defensive midfielder, but we bought one with different qualities than the one that we already had. So that requires you to shift the dynamics in midfield to make sure that there's no gaps. We didn't really do that. Arteta galaxy brained it, so we didn't buy the striker. We didn't really get the left center mid either. And we didn't really buy a left back either. We bought a right back. So it's just we missed the mark, but we got a goalkeeper, So I think that's part of it is we never finished the starting 11. And then so we still have gaps in the 11. And then we're trying to make it work with other players that we already know are either have major gaps in their game, are injury prone, or not good enough. And I think that's why we don't have the depth, but that could just be me. But I feel like the summer window that we had, where we bought Declan and Havertz and Timber, as much as those players individually have been good for us, they still left quite a few questions in the squad and positions that we know needed filling. And so I think that's a big reason why we don't have the squad depth. Injury prone players, too many misses, and then never finishing the 11, the way that it should have been finished. Let's see. Frankie says there has been no shape this season and we have been so lucky with results. Blaze says people forget we spent also money on players like Tavares, Sambi, Fabio Vieira, but it didn't work out. And that's what I was saying. Boy says there's no such thing as a finished 11. The best teams always improve. I don't really agree with that. I think you can name in the Centurions and you can name in Liverpool's title winning team a starting 11 that was at least 10 players. Maybe there's one player that comes in and out that was definitely a part of that. I think you can name that team. We know who it was. Probably the only player that wasn't like a stamped on player for that Liverpool side was Matic. And that's because he was not Matic. You guys know who I'm talking about. His name's not Matic, but it's something like that. I forgot his name already. But you knew it was Salah, Mane, Firmino. You knew it was Henderson, Wijnaldum, and Fabinho. And you knew it was Trent, Robertson, Van Dijk, and one center back, either Kanate or that other Matip. And you knew it was going to be Allison. And that team was at least together for 2 years. And that's all I'm saying is, of course, you're going to modify the team, but it's not that 11 is not the main 11 or the main 10 players or whatever it is are usually the same for at least 2 seasons. And then you maybe upgrade something or change something. But we still had major questions in our starting 11 after that first year that we challenged, and we didn't address them. And that's the major thing, is that we're still asking for a striker and a left center mid for 2 years. We're still asking for that. And those are 2 major parts of your 11. Because the truth is if you buy a striker, that player is probably going to start most games. Most teams have one striker that starts every single game. So to me, that's, a fundamental thing that we haven't looked at. A fundamental thing that we haven't looked at is the midfield and kind of finishing that up, or at least getting a balanced one for the next couple of years. Like, I think it's pretty clear. Like, Owen says, I agree. We haven't had a complete transfer window in years. Omar says we can all remember the Messi, Villa, Pedro team, Cristiano, Benzema, Bale, etc. Yeah, so I think there's those 2 different things going on there. Boy is trying to say that there's never a finished 11, but we all know that, especially in Arteta's team, there is an 11. There's usually an 11, and it's pretty standard. We have gaps in that 11, and we never address the 2 major ones, which is Xhaka leaving and the striker, and then we also needed a left back. We just now kind of got our left back situation together, but he's injured. So, yeah, at the very least, we needed to get a striker, and so I think that's a big reason why we haven't really been able to build that squad depth, because we're always trying to make up or fix things that we either made a mistake on, like we bought the wrong player, or we're trying to figure out a way to solve problems or fix things that we didn't even need to fuck up in the first place. Because we weirdly changed everything and we didn't really need to. But yeah. Owen says we always start the next window catching up on the last one, so we never really truly finished. lost Vlahovic 2 years ago and still can't figure out the 9, what happened on Havertz. And I think Owen's spot on here is that we all know that we've been linked to a striker for a long time. Ever since Aubameyang left, we brought in Jesus. He was never going to be the long-term answer. And so we had Vlahovic on the menu. He didn't come out. He didn't work out. Isak, we also looked at. It's just like Rafinha. We wanted Rafinha. We didn't get him. We wanted Mudryk. We didn't get him. We still haven't gotten that, like quick, tricky winger. We got Trossard, but he was a band-aid. And now he has to play a lot more than probably we want him to play as like a squad guy. And that's we shouldn't have ever let like Jorginho and Trossard get to a point where we're almost like don't want them to play as much. Like they almost played too much to the fact that we've seen too many of their gaps. So we should have already figured them positions out. The only one that hurts us right now is Trossard. And I think he's somebody that you only want to see every once in a while. He's definitely like a sixth level, like a sixth squad player. Right now, he's starting games for us. Lots of games. So yeah, we should have already been figured that out. When I was saying in the summer, we were supposed to get a winger. We didn't get one. We didn't get one because we couldn't get Nico Williams. What is that about? You know? Vermi says, how has Arsenal bought all of these defensive players and yet still an injury crisis in defenders? Because we keep buying the injury prone ones. Zinchenko was injury prone when we bought him. What's that boy's name? Tommy, injury prone. People were saying Calafiore is injury prone. He had one major injury. So, yeah, but it is what it is. I don't know. And then the one that wasn't injury prone ended up getting an ACL. So, Frankie says, Jesus, Cini, Lakanga, Tavares, Vieira, Ramsdale, all his players. So, yeah. And this is why, like, because there's 1,000 of you guys watching, a good, few of you guys on YouTube, and a lot of you guys are watching on Twitter, which is nice. I just thought like it was a better use of our time to just kind of like sit back and chill and talk, because people were asking in the watch along for therapy. And when people are starting to ask about therapy, Arsenal therapy, I know that it's not about the singular game. It's about things that have been happening for probably the whole season. So I knew people probably just needed a moment to like get whatever they want out. And if we spend a lot of time on player ratings when we all know we're going to give almost everybody except for 3 players 3s and 4s, it's a waste of a stream, So to me, this is much better. Junior says, Jess, do you think Arsenal will make a deal for 1 or 2 players in the winter? I don't think we'll do shit in the winter. I really don't. We're not a team that likes doing business in the winter. We only really did the Jorginho and Trossard thing in the winter because I don't even know, because we wanted to win the league, I guess, and we wanted to bring in players. But for the most part, we're not a team that does big business in the winter. And whatever we need to do would be big. We need to buy a striker. A striker is not something that you can just. We don't need anybody to put on our bench to have ready for us. If we need to buy the players that we were meant to buy for the 11. We don't need to buy any other guys that are going to come in and sit the bench. So anything that we needed to do it in the summer. So I don't think we'll do anything in the winter. Victor says, watch next season we get a cheap striker, but then we have gaps somewhere else and we take years to fill those, and then gaps elsewhere. Gil 64 says, hey Jess, new subscriber here, love your expectations for our club and that you're not just happy to compete. You would be so surprised at how that in particular will get you called all kind of names under the book, like every name under the sun. Just I do want us to win trophies, like, and that if I could guarantee that Arsenal would win, the Premier League or the Champions League this season, and they said that you need to get rid of your channel, means like I'm not going to make any money in my channel anymore, I would shut this shit down in a minute. Like, I want Arsenal to win. I don't want us to lose. Like, it's not that I want to be negative for negative's sake, but I think I'm past the we're building for the future thing. And there was just things when we were building that I felt like we normalized that aren't normal. Not being able to get far in domestic cups was one of them. Getting slapped up every time that we went to the Etihad or the Anfield, or and not really laying a blow on them even when we've been relatively better, always didn't sit right with me. The fact that we couldn't rotate without the levels dropping massively never really sat well with me, but we were building for the future and we shouldn't have expectations of what we're doing in the meantime. And so I just don't know when it's okay to not be satisfied with what we're doing right now. Everybody has to sing from the same hymn sheet. And I just feel like we should be doing better now. That's just kind of, yeah. But that doesn't mean that I'm not a supporter, which is how that gets conflated. It's you just kind of want to be negative for negative sake. No, I want us to win, you know? Um, the Arsenal perspective says Champions League and Premier League this season, and next would be glorious, one each season. Boy says our depth has been grossly overhyped. Well, our depth is playing now, and they're really not doing well. I mean, to not even be able to rotate against Southampton was really like, oh shit, that was a red flag. We started who is it? It was Martinelli, Jesus, and Sterling that started that game, was it not? And they were fucking atrocious. Not Martinelli necessarily, but like not individually, but like we rotated and we just didn't look like ourselves. So that's our depth playing, you know. Um, we're talking about Sterling, Jesus, and Trossard. Not Trossard. Martinelli was out there, but you know what I mean. These players are not able to like play above a Shakhtar against the Southampton. Bruh. The Arsenal perspective says Champions League and Premier League this year. I read that one. Amina says, I don't think the problem is squad depth. We lack quality as well, ability over availability. Yeah. To me, I'm more the squad depth thing is less of an issue to me. Then I think even with our squad depth not being that good, or maybe not as good as we thought, they should still be able to like, I don't think them not being able to pass the ball or sitting in their box and kicking the ball away is indicative of their level of play. I don't think because basically what happens is whenever we lose a game or we're unhappy with the team, everybody's just a bum. And we know that that's not true. We know that these players are not what they're showing now. They're playing below their level. Now, does that mean that they're at a world-class level player? No. But should they be able to play better than Shakhtar Donestk at home? Yes. And so where is that coming from? Because to me, that has more to do with Arteta than them, you know? Because we're talking about we're talking about Jesus and Trossard and Sterling and Marino. These guys are not the worst players in the world, so the level shouldn't drop that much. But people are trying to make it seem like basically what people are like insinuating is, well, because they're playing bad against Southampton and Bournemouth and Shakhtar, that they're that level of player or lower. And we all fucking know that's not true. We know Sterling and Jesus and Trossard and Marino are not Bournemouth, Southampton, Shakhtar level players. We fucking know that. So it's not that. But the easy thing to say is, well, they're shit. No, because there are managers that can have not so great players in their team and still perform to a decent level. We know that because Brighton always show up to the Emirates and play us off the park. So we know it's more about the coaching. It has to be. Owen says, I think pragmatism is more a function of Arteta. These players would play better under Wenger. We would concede much more, but would we though? Would we concede so much more? Because one thing under Wenger is that he never had good defenders. He always penny pinched when it came to the defenders. We would always get cast offs from somewhere else, or, we'd have some weird center back pairing of guys that were not very good. And we never had a DM. We have DMs aplenty. So we can play more adventurous and more attacking and still have a good defense, but we also don't have that aspect of making people like offense is your best defense. Right now, it's just a bunch of defending. So we're still conceding, but if we just attacked a little bit more and made them have to sit in their own box a little bit more, maybe they don't get the idea in their head that they can score, the goal that Leicester scored, those 2 goals that Leicester scored, or you see what I'm saying? So I think we could get back to a happy medium, but these guys it's like they couldn't trap a ball today. That was wild. And I've seen that these players weren't even here when I've seen that under Mikel before. So I know that that's a Mikel thing. That's a players under Mikel thing is we can't even pass a ball or trap a ball to each other. I've seen Odegaard get that disease. I've seen ESR have that disease. I've seen Tommy have that disease where they just can't. They're just nonsense, Mode Man says Jesus started today's game selfishly because he's so desperate for a goal. Then when it didn't happen, he just dropped off the mat completely. Can't nobody tell me about Jesus because I told you guys in preseason when people were saying he looked like a changed man and he had fire in his belly. I was like, you guys never fucking learn. Jesus is not coming back. His mind is too gone. His mentality is his biggest problem. And he wore the captain's armband again today, which I can't believe we even allow him to touch it. No offense. But he's not the type of player that you want leading you into battle. I'll tell you that. Omar says this team looks like even if we sign Gyökeres, he'll stop scoring. Man, we don't want Arteta becoming a Ten Hag. Frankie says we could have gone Eze. We was in for Isak years ago, but would not meet his release clause. Philip says after competing over the last 2 seasons, your Arsenal needs to win a trophy, even if it's only a Carabao Cup, which is the lowest of the possible trophies that you could win. I mean, but if you tell people that, and I think you're a Liverpool fan, I think, yeah, you are. If you say that, though, people will be like, well, we don't have to win, or a domestic cup doesn't change anything, or we need to start winning trophies now. And I don't care what trophy it is. We just need to win something. You can't go trophyless again. But if you say that we need to win a trophy, people make excuses why the trophies don't need to be won. So you just need to enjoy the journey. We've gotten so much better. I'm just like, you guys, you got to start winning something. Gil64 says, I talk on X about wanting trophies, but get told to go support City. Like trophies is a dirty word. It's a part of our history. And this team will never be respected if it's not winning trophies. There's only so much underlying metrics, and we've been the best since this time, and how many points we've accrued from the last 2 years. There's only so much of that, it's just only so much of that can save it. I think the time to press forward, especially because the players talk about it too. I think the person that doesn't talk about trophies enough for me is Mikel. I think Mikel usually doesn't speak on trophies. He'll say we want to do much, much more. He'll say we're, working towards the best. We want to be our best selves. He'll talk around it, but for him, I mean, he won't even do an in my second season, I always win something. Arteta evades the conversation around trophies quite a bit. And our players, when they talk about it, I don't be believing them. So it's time. It's time. Burmy says, if what Arteta said in his post-match presser is accurate, they should demonstrate a better quality of play against Liverpool. I'll believe it when I see it. I've seen them do that nonsense before where Arteta start talking up what we're going to do and we don't do shit. So, and listen, they had today to turn the performance around from Bournemouth, and they turned around and played just as bad. So I'll believe it when I see it, but they need to perform against Liverpool. When are you going to start performing? I don't understand. We are in November. So all this, they're not fit yet is bullshit, guys. They should be fit. They should be ready to play, So the only thing that's stopping them from playing is themselves. So the only thing I can think of is Arteta told them to go half speed. But yeah, Shamaria says the end of 2022-2023 season scared the hell out of Arteta. Well, then, I mean, if you can't have your manager can't be scared. Your manager has to be the most confident person out there. He needs to be the most brave, So if he's scared from that season, and it was 2 years ago, let that shit go. Lioneye says each new game reveals a new problem for Arteta now. TaylorMade says Trossard is giving off weird vibes since that goal without the celebration. Well, ever since since the international break, he's been and like almost enemy number one. So whatever, I mean, he even played well for Belgium and then turned around and had a really poor game against Bournemouth. I don't know. I love Trossard, but I just feel like he's the type of player that for Arsenal you want playing cups and you want to bring them on and not play them all the time. You know, start every once in a while, but the more he plays, the more gaps in his game that you can see, which is for 27 million to get a player of his quality is really good from a Premier League side. But it's, he's not on like Saka's level or, when Martinelli's playing well, he's not on Martinelli's level. So, you know, and if Trossard is somebody that believes he should be starting for Arsenal and starts performing weirdly when he's not, or he starts overthinking it, then we have problems. I like Trossard, but I've always viewed him as like a really good squad player, the type of squad player that we're talking about. Our bench is not that good. If Trossard is somebody that's coming off of the bench for you, or playing cups for you, and everybody else is performing, you like that player. But if you're watching him play every week, week in and week out, and he's starting on the wing or trying to replicate Odegaard, you're going to be disappointed. So I don't know. Lionite says Arteta complained about sleepless nights and he got it in tenfold. Amina says the issue is Arteta turned his wingers into defensive merchants and they aren't as free compared to how Poch allowed his wingers to have freedom. Yeah, I mean, I think we spoke about this though, like at the very beginning of the season, that we wanted to see our attackers have more freedom, and everybody defends. There's sometimes where we go down, or not even we go down, we could be trying to weirdly defend a lead against a really bad side or an average side, and everybody's behind the ball. There's so many defensive actions where I see Saka clearing balls from inside the box. I rarely ever see like Salah clearing balls out of the box or, stuff like that. It's a little muchness, and this season we're not getting anything from being this pragmatic either, because we're dropping just as many points as we did the season before. We're conceding just as much as we did before. So we don't need to be this way. We could be a little bit more free, and you need your players to be excited, to play their game. If I was Saka, I'd be like, fuck, another defensive shift, especially if he's playing with Ben, because he really has to support Ben. No offense, but it's true. You can't leave Ben by himself anymore. So, yeah, I think they've earned the right to be a little bit more free. I think Martinelli really needs freedom, really needs freedom. But, yeah. Natalie says, I think Trossard has lost self-confidence. When did that happen? When did it happen? He was just scoring goals against Leicester and Southampton. And then he went to international break and scored and got an assist for Belgium. And then somehow he's lost confidence that quick, but the whole team has dropped off another level since international break. And I mean, that is when we lost Saka. So maybe there is a thing within the team of without Saka, we're ass or something. I don't know. So yeah, Shamaria says we want much more and we're going to get. Oh my gosh. This is like the exact Arteta way of saying, yeah, we're going to get trophies, but not really saying it, so he never speaks with like chest about trophies. Lionide says, I remember Black November from the old days. TaylorMade says, I just think we lost respect for Arteta. That penalty really threw me off. I think he's just lost respect for Arteta. That penalty really threw me off. I don't understand how he's taking the penalty. It should be Kai. I don't understand why he's not taking our penalties. Blaze says it's true since the game away versus City when we lost 4-1 without Saliba and Tomiyasu, Arteta changed and he became more defensive coach. Yeah, because we went to City to play our game. That's the craziest thing. We went to City and opened the fuck up. We were going to press them. We were going to go toe for toe and we got blown out. Um, but I mean, I feel like the main reason why we didn't do anything away at City is one because you relied on Zinchenko and Jesus. One of the things why I don't like them playing against City is because I feel like they're so damaged by them. They're so like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they got rid of us. That instead of like rising to the challenge when they play against City, they shrink even further and they can't play their game. So we had both of them out there, and they were head cases playing against City. And then you had Holding out there, and Holding being out there single handedly dropped the level of the team by like 20 points. Like he was such a net negative, like, you know? And so maybe it wasn't that it's just because you were open, it's just because you're relying on the wrong players. I don't understand why one game needs to make you be super negative. Frankie says Liverpool will take their chances. I mean, I just don't even want to think about the Liverpool game. Clement says aren't not a mentally tough team. Arsenal is a team that hasn't had the winner's mentality for last 20 seasons. We are not a mentally tough team. When the pressure is on, we disappear when it's time to win crunch games in last season. And I just Yeah, I like this team a lot. I think this team is quite talented, and I think they've improved a lot. We're a Champions League level team now, and that's great because we didn't have that for a long time. But it's time to just up the level just a little bit more. We are Arsenal, and when we're back, it's not just being in the Champions League and competing in it. It's actually being in the latter stages and also winning the Premier League and winning domestic cups. At our best, we were winning doubles and, winning, multiple trophies in a season. And so, or at least competing for all four, so that's when we know we're fully back. Right now, we're quite a ways away from that. And it's up to the club to, you know, to figure it out, because always waiting on the fans to give you what you need for it is not going to work. The fans are traumatized. Blaze says, yeah, KDB and Holland bully Partey and Holding in that game. Arteta has PTSD since that game. He needs to get over it, because the longer that he holds on to it, the longer the players are going to hang on to it. They need to have forgotten that, you know? They shouldn't have seen that first title challenge as that was the end of our chances. They should have been able to say like, well, if we just improve this, then we'll be able to win. But you know, the 2 seasons since then, they've started off the season badly. So Boy says Jesus and Zinchenko are just gash. It's not about them having City PTSD. I think it's the City PTSD, because they even performed lower than the level that they were performing for us all season in that game. So, um, yeah, they're not good enough for us now, and they definitely dropped their levels. But the way that Jesus just turns into like the worst person, it's for two teams. It's when he's playing for Brazil and when he's playing against City, he just falls apart. And I never want to see him on the team sheet when we play against City, because I'm like, you've never gotten over it. Whatever they did to you, whatever Pep did to you, you just never recovered from it. And that's clear. You never made it. Caleb, thank you so much for your super chat. Really appreciate that. So yeah, and Shamari says it's because they're mentally weak. I think they just are not the players that you want to build your team around. So yeah, but listen, we just need to I don't know what we're gonna do against Liverpool, because I don't even want to think that far. So yeah. We're actually gonna record Cannon Club tomorrow, and so it'll go out tomorrow afternoon. I wanted to make sure. I was like, well, maybe if I get the Shakhtar one in there, we'll have more fun things to talk about. But yeah, I don't even want to think too far to Liverpool. It's just too ominous, But Arteta's talking up Saturday, like, we're gonna see a different Arsenal. I hope we do, because the Arsenal that we've been seeing is not the Arsenal that I want to know. So yeah, but make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. I know that obviously, when we don't play well, I do feel like it's okay to speak on that, so I will always try to allow there to be a place where people feel comfortable saying exactly how they feel. You know what I mean? So if this wasn't the most positive, sometimes that's just because it wasn't a good day for us. So that's fine. But that doesn't mean that everybody hates the club and we want them to lose and all that kind of stuff. So please leave that alone. We'll see what happens with Calafiore. It looks bad. And they're talking about MCLs and shit like that. So if he's out for a long period of time and Trossard and White are not fit, I don't know what else to do about that. I don't know what we're going to do. So, yeah, but listen, they have until Saturday to figure out if they want to actually win the trophies that they say that they want to win, or if they just were happy to be a part of the conversation for 2 years. Uh, so, yeah, make sure you guys, like I said, like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. And I will talk to you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.